Hi guys, and welcome back to Ask Rhyce, where I answer your questions about real estate. This week, I just wanted to touch on part 2 of how do I price your home. Really good question. A couple of weeks ago, we started along the path and we talked about a logical and an emotional price. What I wanted to focus weeks ago, we started along the path and we talked about a logical and an emotional price. What I wanted to focus on now is sort of finishing off the discussion around that logical idea and how we arrive at that point. So in that video, we spoke about, I guess, the physical, tangible features. We talked about size of a property, the position of a home. I guess those real tangibles there. What I wanted to talk about today was expanding on that a bit further and talking about actual sales and evidence as to where your home should be. What I would be, if I was sitting down with you and I was looking at your property, what I'm trying to establish is a price range. So some sort of indication and range from a low end and a high end of where we think your property would sit in the current market. We do that by looking at actual sales and evidence, properties that have transacted. We also, whilst we do that, we do take into consideration properties that are on the market. But for me, it's more taking a specific look at what's transacted, where have those prices been, because ultimately that's where buyers have seen value. Those properties are no longer on the market, they've been taken off, but that's where buyers have seen value. And chances are that there's buyers in the market now who, one, missed out on those properties, or two, at least went through them and they were early on in their stage, and they're going to use those sales to form their opinions about value and price, which ultimately will affect your property if you're going to market. So on that, when we're looking at actual sales, that first part that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago was around, what's your property got to offer, whether it's position, physical features of the property, the size of it, the size of your land, etc. Now we need to take that information. We need to look at, I like to start most likely from a radius around the property. Now there can be different areas, like I mentioned in the previous video, that could be a neighbouring suburb that has properties in it, or the position is such that it is comparable. But typically, immediate radius around a property is going to help you the most. Obviously, you want to stay to something that's relevant. So if you're looking at 5-10 acre properties, then obviously your radius is could be upwards of a couple of kilometres. Whereas if you're looking in more of your typical Australian suburbia, you're looking at a much smaller, tighter radius. You could be anything from 500 metres to the property, 750 metres, upwards of a kilometre. But it really is, you're trying to find, as best you can, comparables that are close by, and looking at where they've sold out. Now, obviously, chances are those properties are all going to differ, but what you're looking is trying to piece together logically homes that you think are similar. Now, similar from the point of view, you might have buyers, or similar, I guess, in terms of if your property had been on the market at the same time that sold, chances are the same buyers probably would have had a look at yours. So chipping away through there, the other thing to look at is those properties. Chances are, if you're dealing with an agent, they'll also be able to have a bit of an analysis and look at where those one, how long those properties are on the market, and two, whether they sold it or not. There should be some sort of indication where that property started price-wise, or if it started with an auction campaign, how many days it was on the market, and what was its final advertised, whether it was price, or if it sold at auction, then obviously started and sold via auction. So that can be probably the next best step. And I guess for me, it's definitely around actual sales and evidence. Whilst it is important what your agent thinks or has a bit of a feel or a sense of what the market could be, I refer to it sometimes as the sweet spot. If we're looking at a property, I'll probably have a bit of an understanding as to where I think it would slot in the market. But really, when trying to price your home, you're trying to establish a price range. On the bottom end of the range, I could see buyers probably showing interest from that level upwards. The top end of the range, look, certainly not impossible, but chances are to get beyond that price, the property probably doesn't offer enough to get you past that price point. Even in a difficult, or even an area where you've got limited comparisons, you should still be able to establish some sort of range. The properties on the bottom end might be very, very, not good comparables, or vice versa on the top. So obviously we can say, well, look, we're definitely superior to these. There isn't a lot of sales where I think your property sits, and at the top of the market, whilst I'd love to be at that price point, I think that these properties are probably superior. So there's different ways to establish that range, but you should be working on a price range. Ultimately, none of us as real estate agents have a crystal ball. So there's no way for me to categorically say your home is going to sell for exactly this. And there's been plenty of times where we've sold homes for more than what we thought. And there definitely has been times where the market just hasn't been where we were ideally hoping it would be. And we've had to sell for a lower price point because that's where the market saw value. So that's, I guess that I just wanted to finish that off in terms of a logical price point. When we talk about emotional prices, it's not something, when I talk about that, it's something that you should be aware of and should understand it, but it's not something that you plan out your figures on. I suggest you plan out and you make your decisions based around logic. Emotional, however, is that, maybe on the top end, whilst, it's not likely that we'll end up at that point, if there is serious competition and emotion that's brought into it, maybe you do outperform that. And we have certainly seen that happen countless times over the years. So guys, I really hope that helps. Just finishing off on that discussion around how to price your home. In the first video we spoke about specifics to the property. In this one I'm just talking about making sure you're comparing to actual sales and evidence, and establish a range. I think establishing a range is just a sensible way to go. There is no way, unless someone travels through time, there's no way for us to tell you exactly what your home's going to sell for, but you should be able to establish a comfortable range for which to work from. On the low end, we should be here. On the higher end, we should be here. Probably perfect world, we're right in the middle, but it really depends. The final closing thoughts. Guys, don't forget, if you do go to market, so say this isn't just to get you, an updated valuation. If you do go to market, you're on the market in competition, not isolation. So that's another reason why we talk about a radius, comparable properties. At the end of the day, as soon as you go on the market, your home, no matter where it sits, even if it's the best home in the suburb, it's still on the market in competition. Those buyers that could be interested in the best home in the area, they're obviously going to be looking at number 2 and 3 as well. So just remember, it's really important to establish your price based on logic. Most times, as best you can, form a price range where you think your home sits. And remember that if you do go to market, you're not on the market on your own. You're in competition. Buyers will be looking at your home as well as others. So guys, I really hope that helps, just touching on price a little bit more. If you have any more questions at all about real estate, please feel free to post them in the comments below, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.